So for this unit, we're going to start talking about what we call the central angles. Okay, so let me draw something really quick. Let's assume that this is a circle. So let's call that a circle. Now, interesting is that the circle has a center. So let me do my center here. And let me draw a 90-degree angle. So we know a 90-degree angle looks like an L, right? And let's assume that's in the center, okay? All right, so that's a 90-degree angle. Looks like an L shape. Interesting part is that when I look at the arc, the distance around the circle, it looks like 1/4 of the circle. Now I know the whole circle is 360. So 1/4 of that, right? I could go 360 divided by 4. 360 divided by 4 is also 90. So the angle in the center is 90. The arc is 90. It happens to be the same number. Let me show you guys another case. I'm going to check, what if I do a line? I know the angle of a line here is 180, but this line happens to make half of a circle. I know the whole circle is 360, half of the circle I'm going to say is 180, so I get the same number. It was not coincidence. What happens in circles is the measurement of the central angle, so the angle in the center, it is equal to the angle of the arc, so the distance around the circle. They have the same degrees. So sometimes I'm going to give you guys arcs. Now you guys see this 74. This is the measurement of an arc. So I'm going to say this angle right here in the center, this is also 74. Right? The central angle and the arc that it creates have the same degrees, so 74 degrees. Sometimes I might give you the measurement of an angle. You guys see that 119 is inside. So this arc, the arc JN, I'm going to say this is 119. Okay, so that's the information I want to give you guys. Now here, sometimes I might ask you, give me the measurement of an angle. See question number 1. I'm asking, we'll find out what's the measurement of angle LIN, but sometimes I might ask you for the measurement of an arc. You guys see in question number 2, that's not an angle, it says measurement of the arc VR. So sometimes I might ask you for an angle, I might ask you for an arc. They're measured in degrees. It'll be the same measurement. So find the measure of the arc or central angle indicated. Assume the lines which appear to be diameters are actual diameters. Okay, so let's take a look. In green, let me highlight this whole line. So it looks like a diameter, right? So it said, assume the lines which appear to be diameters are actual diameters. So the angles on one side, so if I was to look at this whole arc, it's 180, right? I know part of it is 119. So I'm going to think, well, what would be 180 minus 119? I know that's 61. So if I wanted to know the arc NM, I'm going to call that 61. Because I know those two combined is 180. I want to know how big is angle LIN. So let me see. That is this angle, right? Connect the letters LIN in that order. That's this angle. And that makes this arc. Okay, from the whole arc that I'm looking for, I know part of it is 74. Another part is 61. If I combine them, so that means add them, 74 plus 61 is 135. So I'm going to say this whole arc in the center will be 135. 135 degrees. Okay, that's not bad. Let's take a look at question number 2. Okay, this time I'm going to start with just the information given, and I'm going to ask myself, what can I possibly do with that 50 degrees? Okay, I know 50 degrees is this angle on the inside So the arc RS, I'm going to say that's 50. I'm going to say the arc VR, this arc right here, is going to be 130. And the reason why, because I see those two arcs combined is half of a circle. And obviously half of the circle is 180. So if one angle is 50, the other one has to be 130. Interesting is that that's the arc that I was asking. I want to know how big is the measurement of arc VR. I'm going to say, well, I figured that it's 130 degrees. Let's take a look at another example, question number 3. Now this measurement, this instructions, it looked like an arc. You guys see the curve on the top, but it has 3 letters. Okay, when I name an arc, I can either use 2 or 3 letters. So I'm gonna connect K, G, and I. Has to be a continuous connection. So let me do it wrong. So intentionally, let me do it wrong. Let me go from K to G, and then let me come back to I. And that doesn't work. It has to be continuous, so it has to be nonstop from K, go through G, and all the way to I. So this is the arc that I'm looking for. In red, let me show you the wrong one, right? So I'm looking for the blue arc. Okay, so let's see. What do I know? I see a 68 degrees there. Okay, I also know the arc KG. I can figure that out because it's from KGH, that's the whole circle. So I'm just gonna go 180 minus 68. So this happens to be 112. So the arc KG is 112. I know the arc GH is 68. And I remember a rule that I mentioned to you guys before. When there's an X form, opposite angles are equal. So if I had one side was 68 degrees, the other angle also on the opposite side will also be the same. Remember vertical angle theorem? I see an X form right here. So I'm going to say this right here, it is 68 degrees. Another thing that I remembered is that two angles are adjacent in an X. So two adjacent angles are equal to 180. So I'm going to say this right here has to be 112 because these two angles have to add up to 180. So that means this right here is 112. So from H to J is 112. The interesting part, I want you guys to focus on these two marks right here. Okay, it's the same mark. So what I mean is that those two angles are equal. I know those two angles combined is 112. But I'm just going to say, well, there's two angles, so 112 divided by 2. I'm going to say each angle happens to be 56. Okay, so this is 56, and this is 56. Let me highlight what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the arc KGI. So this is what I'm looking for. Notice I have what I need. I'm going to add 112 plus 68 plus 56. And that happens to be 236. Now use your common sense, okay? 180 is half of a circle. This looks more than half of a circle, so 236 makes sense. Let's move on. Let's see. I'm asking for the arc, the measurement of the arc TSQ. So from T, go through S all the way to Q. Okay, that looks more than half of a circle, so I'm expecting something more than 180. I know this right here is 145. And I'm gonna say this arc that I have in green, I'm gonna say it happens to be 215. Now I know those two angles combined has to be 360 because the whole circle. So 360 minus 145 gave me 215. Now that's really what I'm looking for, right? The arc TSQ. So I'm done. This happens to be 215 degrees. Let me zoom out so you guys can see what we did. It's right there.